Hey, thank you for visiting my channel, Cody Brainy. So, in our previous session, we talked about a doubly linked list, right? And today we are actually going to implement a doubly linked list using a Java program, right? So, let us recap whatever we have discussed in our earlier session. So we talked about doubly linked list, and it has two pointers, next and previous. Next will point to next node, and the previous will point to the previous node. So because of this specific behavior, doubly linked list has the ability to traverse in both directions, right? So keep that in mind, and one few more points. So it should be having the doubly linked list will be having a head node, a head a pointer or a head reference, which always point to the first node, and it will be having a tail node which will always point to the last node in the list. So a doubly linked list will be having two member variables, which will be head and tail, and then node will be having um, three three member variables will that will be like the data, the data part, and then the next pointer and the previous pointer. So let us do that exercise now. So if you look at my screen, um, let us create a Java class inside the default package. So I'm going to create it. I'm going to name it as doubly linked list. Let us generate the auto uh, entry code execution entry method, public static void main. I just finished it. So the first step is like the same way, right? So in our previous exercise, we created Java implementation for singly linked list. So one way it is somewhat similar to that implementation. The only difference is like doubly linked list will be having an extra pointer, which is the previous, which will always points to the previous node. So let us create that class, static class node. So node will be having three in data, member variables in data, then node next and node previous, right? Let us initialize the constructor int int my data, int my data, right? And then we can initialize data equal my data, and then next equal null. So whenever we create a node, let us make both pointers as null. So we created the node. Now what we can do is I'm going to write a method, right, for the for adding item into a doubly linked list. So that can be like private um, private void add item. This will be accepting two arguments, right? One is doubly linked list, that will be the my list, and other one is the data int input data. Oh, let me correct this spelling. Input data Right, so we got that two parameters. So we are going to add the input data, the first input data to my list. So let me show you what I'm trying to do here. I want to save 1357. Okay, this is my data, input data. So let us start doing that operation, right? Add item operation. So the first thing is creating a node. So I'm going to create a node. Okay, node, new node equal new of node. When a node is created, the constructor is expecting a input parameter, right? So let us put this here. So it's actually now passing an input. Now we are passing actually input data to the new node. So a new node is constructed right now, right? So this is the case. So when a new node is constructed, you might have noticed the next and previous is null. So let me indicate like this: nl 1 nl. Okay. So this is the next, and this is the previous. So this is the current condition, current situation. Okay. Now we need to make head point to the first node, right? So this node should be assigned to the head. So how we will do that? So first we need to check if list head is my list dot head is okay. I did not declare head, right? So we need to declare two variables here: node head and node tail. These are the two member variables of doubly linked list, or two properties of doubly linked list. So now we can check condition here: my list dot head equal null. If it is equal null, make my list dot head as the new node. So during the first iteration, all these things will executed, right? And the current condition is, after the execution of this line, head will be pointing to this node. Okay. Now what will be the tail? Tail, whenever we create a node, actually we can make tail point to the last created node, right? Last created node. So let us do that operation here. So I am going to put my list dot tail equal new node. Right now I am assigning a new node. So is that make now if you look at here, right? This is the current condition. Now both head and tails are pointing to the first node. This is the current condition. Now what will happen during the second iteration when we are trying to save 3 data in it? So it comes here, it created a node here, right? The current condition is like this, node here. Now the list dot head is actually pointing to the first node, so this if won't execute. So it should go to the else block now. So let us put the else block now. Right? So we put an else block here. Now what we need to do? The traversal, right? So we need to do that traversal. So node current node equal my list dot head. Right? Now we will do that traversal. While current dot node equal to dot next node equal null, current node equal dot next. So this is a traversal operation. So this time, right, so when we try to pass a 3 data in it, so this won't execute because head is already pointing to the first node. So it comes here, we get the current node, we saved the head node as the current node, right? So now current node is actually pointing to this one. If you see, current node is actually pointing to this one, Cn is pointing to this one. So it next is null, right? Current node's next is null, so it won't execute the while loop. Okay, it won't execute the while loop. Now what we need to do, we need to make this next. Okay, current node dot next. Now the current node is pointing to this, we need to make it this next. This is a next pointer to newly created node. So what we will do, current node dot next equal the new node. After the execution of this line, what will happen, we are actually pointing to, this will be like this now. So it is pointing to this one, and this will be pointing to third node. So let me indicate it as 3n. Okay, so the first nodes next will be pointing to this specific newly created node. This is the current condition now. Now we need to save the previous node, right? So if you see the previous node of the newly created node, this is the newly created node, right? NL. The previous node we did not save it actually. So now this is the time to save the previous node. Now where we can find the previous node? So if you see the previous node's tail, right? If you see the previous node's tail, the tail is actually pointing to the last node, right? So now we can assign the new nodes previous to the tail of the list. I think you got the logic. So now I am going to assign here current node dot, sorry, not the current node, this is the new node, right? New node dot previous. Oh, okay, new node dot previous equal my list dot tail. Now if you see, this relationship actually established after the execution of the second line, this line, 43rd line. Now what we'll do, we are making the previous of the new node. This is the new node, right? We are actually making the previous of the new node to point to the tail node. What is the tail node? Tail node is actually the head node. So now this is pointing to node 1. Okay, this is actually pointing to node 1. So we established that relationship now. Now we established that relationship, right? Now assume what is happening during the next iteration. So here, if you noticed, now we make the list tail as the new node. So now the tail is now pointing to this one. Okay, now this is the list tail. Tail is now the last node. Head is this one. Head is the first node. Sorry. Head is the first node. This is the current scenario now, right? because we make tail pointing to the new node, so it's now pointing to here. Now during the next iteration, when 5 comes here, we created a new node, so 5 comes here, right? It went into else block. The current node will point to the first node. The iteration starts. When it exits this time it enters the while loop, right? Iteration loop. And when it exits, the current node will be what? This one, right? So when it exits, the current node this time will be 3. Okay, right? This is the current node, because we are here in this while loop, we are trying to identify the last node. So last node is 3. So now we created a new node, okay, which has 5 data in it. Now we are telling, hey, the new node dot previous is tail. So new nodes dot previous is list tail. What is the list tail? So this one, right? Earlier we saved list tail as the third, right? You remember the tail was actually pointing to third node, the node which has the 3. So now the previous is pointing to this one. So the previous will become this one. Okay. Next is, what is next? Next is pointing to the new node. The current node next is pointing to the new node. So what is the current node? Current node is actually the 3. This next is pointing to new node, which is N5. Okay. So all the relationship now established. This is the logic of the traversal. Okay, now let us see whether it is generating the desired output. I hope you understand this. There is nothing complex here. If you look at the program for singly linked list, it's almost same as linked list. The only thing is like we need the previous pointer is here in doubly linked list, so we use that previous pointer to save. Not saving, we need that previous pointer to make doubly linked list traverse in the other direction. So previous will always point to the previous node, next will always point to the next new node, right? So if you see the new nodes previous will be like we are actually assigning we are actually pointing to the tail node, because tail always point to the last node, right? Tail always point to the last node. That will become the previous when a new node is created. That's the logic. If you understand that logic, it is simple. So tail will always point to the last node, and when a new node is created, that new node's previous will become the tail reference. Okay, so if you understand that logic, it's very simple. So let us write a print item method, right? Private print item. Print item will accept our one argument, which is our list. Now let us traverse. Okay, instead of print item, let me put maybe traverse forward, because there are two types of traversal, right? In doubly linked list, you can traverse forward using next, you can traverse reverse using the previous. These are all previous, right? So let us traverse forward first. The traversal is simple. The traversal should happen from the head. If it is a forward traversal, then it should happen from the head. So we can copy this and put it here. So it's actually starting from the head, and then we can put a sys out here. data value during during traversal is current node dot data. Then inside the traversal logic we can also put the same thing. We should also put the same thing. Okay, so now let us add items into the linked list, right? So let us initialize the linked list equal new doubly linked list mylist dot add. So let me add one, sorry, it's an integer, so we can add 1 2. Okay, let me add 4 data 1 3 5 7. So this is going to call that add item method, so it will execute all this logic, and let us call the new method to print that traverse forward. Okay, so let me run this program. Okay, let me see. Okay, I did not pass the my list. Let me pass that one. Clear. Let me play it again, execute. So you see the traverse forward returns back 1357. It means it saved all the data in the doubly linked list. Now let us traverse back, right? So I'm going to traverse. Now the traversal happens from here to here, right? Now we are going to traverse from here to here. So it's basic. It should basically print the reverse 7531, right? That should be the output. So I'm going to modify traverse reverse. Now you should, when you start traversal from or traversing from the end, you should begin with the tail instead of next, right? So current node, sorry, not the tail, previous, right? It should start from the previous, and here it should be tail. So your current node should start from the tail, and you should iterate through the previous current nodes dot previous. Instead of next, you should iterate through previous. Okay, so all the next should be replaced with previous because you are traversing from the reverse side. Okay, so now let us print data value during, let me put reverse traversal so that we can distinguish between the other one and this one. Okay, I hope this logic should work. Okay, let us call this method then mylist dot traverse reversal. Okay, let me execute this program. You see, during the reversal, it starts from the tail node. It iterates through the previous, and it gets the data in a reverse manner 7 5 3 1. Hope you understand the concept of doubly linked list. So I prefer, I recommend you